Hi, this is Les Levine, the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason in Ohio sports. Yesterday, I did 4 hours of talk on 92.3 The Fan. To quote Jimmy Haslam, candidly, it's not so easy to talk baseball in the middle of a pennant race, let alone before pitchers and catchers report. But yesterday, the callers did want to talk, and they wanted to talk about the Houston Astros cheating scandals. And it seemed like these callers were not 75 years and older. Wouldn't it be ironic if baseball made a comeback spearheaded by a whole bunch of cheaters wearing Houston Astros uniforms? Bud Shaw is here for an encore performance. More sports and Les Levine is on the air. From the worldwide headquarters of More Sports and Les Levine, it's a Wednesday night. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to More Sports and Les Levine into its 24th consecutive year, seen exclusively right here on cleveland.com. Bud Shaw slept over last night. We had a sleepover.
I'm back.
And the cookies were great.
Yeah. I wish the conversation had been as good.
Yeah, well, that happens. We have to have some honesty here. We have to tear back.
Okay.
Oh, I start now.
Yeah, why?
We're going to tear back the curtain a little bit.
Okay.
We're going to let you know we're going to do this show from 6, as it is right now, to 6:45 tonight because no reason other than I want to go to the Sports Awards dinner.
Yeah.
It's my show. I can do that.
Well, you usually say that you have a lucrative speaking engagement, but you're actually not speaking there tonight.
No.
I mean, you might be speaking. You're just not being paid to say anything.
Well, that's not the only time that would ever happen in my life.
Yeah, true.
216-575-0403 is the number to call. Bud Shaw is with us. If he missed something from last night when he was on, you got 45 minutes to do it again.
Well, I'll say this. It sounds as if the Browns are a little closer to making a decision on their GM.
Blood and guts.
George Payton.
Payton.
Not Patton, Payton. Apparently just left Berea within the last half hour after his second interview, was there from 9:30 on. So you would think that maybe they've ironed out some issues or whatever concerns that there might have been between the two. Maybe not, but it sounds to me if you spend a second interview, an 8-hour second interview, sounds pretty promising to me.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at what he's done, and you'll find out if he's somebody, at least from the resume, that you'd be interested in. General manager candidate, he's just completed his second, whole bunch of seasons. 13 seasons. Vikings player, personnel, and assistant GM under Rick Spielman. And he's worked side by side, obviously, with the current Vikings GM, as I mentioned, and he's worked with Stefanski.
Boy, talk about, it's the exact opposite of Berea, right? When you go to work there, you stick.
You go to work.
Yeah. Stefanski's that's the only organization he's been with. George Payton's been there 13 seasons.
Some of these guys may not even know where the door is.
So there's an organization that hasn't won much still stuck with their guys.
Okay, help me out on this. Well, yeah, but they probably had the right guys, unlike some other organizations I know.
Maybe.
Right,
Shanahan would have been looked okay to stick with here.
He would have been no question about that.
And I still think Mike Pettin could have been a successful head coach here. I really believe that.
I don't disagree with that. I think he's going to be out at Green Bay, though. Probably. It's a tough.
After that performance,
you get
after you lose to a team when they only throw the ball 8 times, it doesn't look too good for the defensive coordinator.
There's some glamour to being a coach, I would think, if you're with a successful team. There's not much glamour if you got to turn around every year and look for another job and say, honey, I'm home, but this is not our home anymore.
Yeah, I would also think that some of that glamour washes off a little bit when you're spending 16, 18-hour days in there every day of the week during the season. It's a grind for those guys.
It is a grind, and the job description has changed, and when you think about it, you talk about teams that can go from the bottom to the top fairly quickly, which, by the way, San Francisco's been horrible the last 5, 6, 7 years, and look at them now.
4 wins last year to what they are right now, which is pretty amazing team to watch. Everybody's got this idea that this is Kansas City's offense against San Francisco's defense. that San Francisco offense is a bear to deal with,
No
apparently.
question about it. No question. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. So a couple of interesting things. Let's, just for the sake of doing the show, let's say that Peyton does get named general manager. And now all of a sudden, where DePodesta seemed to be totally in charge, he kind of, if this happens, he kind of moves to the side, and Peyton walks in with Stefanski, and they kind of run their own little game.
Well, they run their own little game as long as they genuflect to analytics and to that side of the building.
Yeah.
And I think it was pretty clear, Les, that the old school guys like Dorsey and Alonzo Highsmith and maybe Kitchens to a lesser extent, I'm not sure, did not really welcome that input from the DePodesta side of the building. So, you know, you and I were talking off camera when you hear that, well, finally the Browns will have alignment between the GM and the head coach. Well, I mean, they had alignment last year. John Dorsey picked Freddie Kitchens. They were, you know, they spent time together before he made that hire. So I don't think there was an issue between those two guys. Maybe I'm wrong and somebody can call and tell me differently, but certainly this brings into play the sort of the forward thinking of that Paul DePodesta and the front office is bringing as far as analytics. This new regime is going to be more receptive to it.
All right, so I'm a little confused about a couple of things, which is the way things are. You got DePodesta, who you would. One thing you hear about Jimmy Haslam is he talks to a lot of people and he listens to a lot of people, and sometimes it's the last one out the door that he listens to, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that DePodesta is sitting 3,000 miles away, you wouldn't think he'd be able to continue the control, but apparently he does.
Well, I think, you know, the way it was explained to us the other day when we were down there, you know, Haslam spoke first in the Browns locker room and was asked the question about DePodesta, and said that, you know, he's very, very involved. He doesn't think of Paul as this, you know, voice who comes into town every couple of weeks. DePodesta told us that he'd been there every week since training camp. He'd been in Cleveland or with the Browns.
Right.
Now,
and Tom Withers has said that he talked to him almost every week also.
Yeah, so I mean, I know I would see him at Browns games, you know, in the press box or down in the outside the locker room or whatever. So you know he was coming in here, and he had decided, he said, going back to his days with the Mets, that he wasn't going to move his family because he have his extended family in La Jolla and San Diego area, that he would take on the grind of flying back and forth, and did it for 5 years with the Mets and continues to do it now. I know some people feel that that's like, well, if you're going to be running the organization, you should be here every day. Yeah. I just don't think that's what he's doing. I think he's giving them parameters for the kinds of people they should be looking to hire, and I think he's giving them, you know, parameters for other ways of looking at analytics
it doesn't seem like anybody's
as they apply to other parts of the organization.
Right, but now it doesn't seem like anybody in the NFL doesn't seem like they're logging onto this and saying, hey, look what they're doing in Cleveland. That's something we ought to.
Well, certainly there's not many. I don't think there's any other organization that has a director of strategy or a chief of strategy. But there are other organizations that on game days have guys with headphones on who are telling, they're in the conversation saying, third and 3 in this part of the field, this is what this team does 83% of the time, you know. They try to help their people out that way.
Well, that's to be debated.
That it works, or that,
because there's an assumption that each team is the same, that you have the same running game, the same passing game, the same, you know, when you say 83% of the time, 67% of the time, you're all on equal footing, and we all know that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there are certain teams that are running different things. I mean, obviously, look at the zone blocking that Shanahan has decided to not decided. He followed his dad's footsteps on that. But I think you know, a statistical study of what teams' tendencies are. If I were a head coach, I'd want to know that.
I'd want to know that also, instead of thinking of it as a threat. Yeah. All right, when we get back, Bud will have his opening comment. Did you know the Ohio Lottery has paid out over $1 billion in winnings over the last 6 months? People are winning in record numbers. Winning is happening all over the state of Ohio. Play an Ohio Lottery game and play it today. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/More Sports and Les Levine, with new content posted each and every day. We've got a good question today. We'll look at some results a little bit later. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a four-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
All right, here's birthdays for today. Joe the Jet Perry, born on this date. Oscar nomination, 1947. Lester Hayes with the Stickum. Wayne Embry.
Wayne Kirby.
Kirby, I'm sorry. I was thinking of Wayne Embry because, well, I'll tell you in a second why I was thinking about him. Ubaldo Jimenez and Greg Oden, all born. Pretty good, on paper, pretty good players here, but some of them, because of injuries, didn't get to do it.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody the story of
Wayne Kirby?
No, no.
Wayne Embry?
No, of Maurice Stokes.
Ah.
And for those who don't know, Maurice was a young player with the Cincinnati Royals, and you not totally sure how it happened, but he was on the airplane after a Royals game, and he fainted and either cracked his head or something else was going on in his brain that made him collapse. And Embry was on that team. I spoke to him about that several times. And Jack Twyman, who was a very, very good player for the Royals, sort of adopted Maurice Stokes and took care of him, all his debts, his medical bills, and everything else. It's a great story.
Really great story.
216-575-0403. All right, let's. You got an opening comment, even though we're halfway through?
Yeah, Baseball Hall of Fame is in the news with Omar finishing with 52% of the vote. Think he's heading in the right direction. But you know, I heard someone on the radio today, Les, make the case for Albert Belle as a Hall of Famer. The contention, I think, being that the only thing kept him out is the hard feelings of voters who had to deal with his anger issues over the years. You know, Belle was one of the most feared hitters in baseball. His 50-50 season in 1995, I think, spoke to his greatness. But using the same logic that makes Omar Vizquel's longevity a plus in his Hall of Fame evaluation, not a detriment, as some voters would argue, the fact that Belle's hip injury, cut his career short can't be ignored. He played just 10 full seasons and parts of 2 more, compiling 381 home runs, 1,726 hits, and 1,239 RBI. He was a 5-time All-Star. He probably should have been the MVP in 1995, but that award went to Mo Vaughn of the Red Sox. We don't know for how long Albert Belle corked his bat. We just know that he did cork his bat. Was that a factor in the voting? Probably not. I just think that he needed to be greater longer than he was to force voters to ignore his conduct. And there is a character clause in the voting. But as always, I'll stand corrected by Les. Les?
Well, first of all, we think he's a Hall of Famer because we're Cleveland Indians fans.
Do you think he's a Hall of Famer?
No, I think he needed the 2-3 extra years at the same level. However, that being said, that 1995 season of his, that was only 144 games, by the way.
Yeah.
That was one of the great offensive seasons ever in baseball.
Yeah, 52 doubles, I think 50 home
50
runs.
homers.
You know, he when his first year of eligibility in the Hall of Fame, he got 7.7%.
That's absurd.
And the second year, he got under 5 and was off the ballot. Lofton also
he had 1 year on it.
Had 1 year on it and got 3.5%. I know some of the voters are still kicking themselves over the fact that they didn't think Lofton was a Hall of Famer on that ballot, but they didn't want to see him kicked off after 1 year.
Right,
So,
he deserved more than that.
Yeah.
One of the great leadoff hitters in baseball history when you think about it. Let's take a look at Albert Belle and see some of the things we're talking about. 12 years in MLB, 5 consecutive All-Star seasons, 5 times Silver Slugger Award, first player to break the $10 million per year contract. One of the, I don't know if it was scary or funny, when he came back with Chicago and playing left field. And the fans papered him with Monopoly money.
Oh, yeah.
Which apparently was grabbed up by Odell Beckham. Not Modell Beckham.
Yeah, that was his famous Village Idiots quote.
Yeah.
When he called the Cleveland fans Village Idiots.
Right.
You know, one of the real trivia questions from that 1995 voting, should we make people try to answer this, Les, or should I give the answer?
Just throw it out.
Albert finished 8 votes behind Mo Vaughn in that election. So Mo Vaughn won, Albert was second. I believe Edgar Martinez might have been third. And another Cleveland Indian finished 4th in that voting. Who was it?
Voting for MVP?
Mm-hmm.
In 95?
In 95. Should I do the Jeopardy music?
Yeah, go ahead. Was it Albert Einstein? No. All right, help me out.
A pitcher.
Like, tell me, a pitcher. Oral Hershiser?
No.
Jose Mesa.
Jose Mesa.
Yeah.
How about that?
People forget how good he really was.
That year was unbelievable. And, you know, Manny was somewhere in that voting, but obviously he was, you know, 12th or 15th that year.
Could you imagine?
What a team. My goodness.
If you had cable TV or whatever back then in 1941 when 2 people didn't vote for Ted Williams at all, and that year all he did was hit 406. It was pretty good year no matter what.
We talked about this voting thing last night a little bit, and I don't understand what some people do with their ballot, and I don't want to criticize anybody because, you know, I think these guys put a lot of thought into what they do in general.
You'd hope
but
they
you know,
do.
starting way back when the fact that like Babe Ruth was not a unanimous selection, right?
Your point.
Because of that, you have voters now who are. They don't want anybody else. Well, hey, if Babe wasn't unanimous, how could Derek Jeter be unanimous? Or how could Mariano Rivera be unanimous, which he was. But you have this sort of, these guys trying to fix something that was wrong to begin with.
Right.
Like, so just because somebody made a mistake back then and didn't put Babe Ruth on the ballot doesn't mean you should make a mistake now.
It makes it hard to keep the status quo of how you determine these guys. When you say 2 people did not vote 1 through 10 for Ted Williams. I mean, my guess is if he got a 10th place vote on both of those ballots, he wins the MVP.
Yeah, well, you know, my understanding too is that DiMaggio only got like 46% or something the first year that he was on the ballot. So I'm not sure what the criteria is, but there is a character conduct line in there in the Hall of Fame voting.
Sure.
And some people have used it and I think sort of compromised it by applying it to certain other things. But you could make the argument that Albert Belle did not rise to the level of Hall of Fame character in the way he dealt with not just the media. I'm not talking about him getting angry with media. I'm talking about things he said to fans, to little old ladies in the stands when they asked for autograph, to Hannah Storm, to teammates, to Bobby Brown, the American League president,
Right.
to, you know, so there was a lot going on there, and I do think that some voters held it against him, whether that's fair or not.
East and West and South, that's where you're going to find Northeast Factory Direct, and also the great website, northeastfactorydirect.com, the place to go. You're going to save a lot of money. How do you save it? Well, Alex passes the savings on to you. He pays maybe 1/10 what the big box stores pay, and he does, in fact, send it on to you, where you're going to save 50, 60, even 70% on some of the great items. Check it out, and then go to northeastfactorydirect.com. We'll come back in a moment. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Bud Shaw with us. And we'll take a break right after these messages, exclusively on cleveland.com.
Celebrate Naturestone's 30-year anniversary with a free Naturestone floor. During 2020, we will be giving away 30 free floors to 30 very lucky customers to say thank you for making Naturestone the best concrete flooring solution for garages, basements, and more. Call or visit naturestone.com today to register to win, and we'll send you a copy of our new buyer's guide absolutely free. There's no purchase necessary. Winners will be chosen monthly. With over 30 million square feet installed for more than 60,000 customers, it's easy to see why I always say it's not just a floor. Wow, it's Naturestone.
Just because I'm not $1 million price doesn't mean I'm worthless. We middle prices get zero respect. We're worth hundreds, even thousands. I mean, I'm a handsome bag of money. And there's $110 million worth of us in the Ohio Lottery Cash Celebration scratch-off alone. Plus, the odds of winning are off the chart. 1 in 3.
Play the $30 cash celebration for a chance to win up to $1 million.
You see?
Oh, and lots of prizes between $100 and $1,000.
Everybody wants $1 million. Would $500 be so bad? Come on.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
All right, time for a How Come Quickie. How come even Alan Trammell knows that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame before Omar Vizquel? Is that a repeat from last night? Maybe?
I believe it is. I was going to say that sounded very familiar.
But the truth, the truth will set you free.
It's still a quickie.
It's still a quickie.
It's just as quick as it was last night.
I wonder what quickie I turned in before. It's lost in the stratosphere somewhere. Huh. 216-575-0403. I don't know why we pay our writers what we pay them for not going to do the right thing. Okay, so we have a question of the day, the Facebook question of the day. Biggest moment of 2019 in Cleveland sports. Do you have an answer for that?
Well, I want to start out by saying I don't think there were a lot of great accomplishments team-wise.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yes, I would.
I would say Carlos Carrasco's comeback.
Excellent.
His return.
Glenn Berger says the Browns' 40-25 win in Baltimore in September to even their record at 2-2. Everybody was feeling good about the Browns after that game. It went downhill pretty fast after that, after the Baltimore win. Larry Pantages says Bill Fitch induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Two great quotes in his acceptance speech. I always figured coaching was a good way to keep from working and having a job. It was fun. Number two, I was hired in a whole lot of places because nobody wanted the job. Andy Mees agrees with you. Cookie Carrasco's return to the mound in Tampa Bay, months after being diagnosed with leukemia, his teammates hugging him and the Tampa Bay faithful giving him the ovation. It was a classy thing. Still gives me chills thinking about it. I would agree.
Yeah,
and they need him this year.
You and I talked a little bit off the air about the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards and the Lifetime Achievement Award that's going to the Dolan family And I heard a big discussion about it on radio today on 92.3. You know, this isn't about whether ownership delivered a championship or not. You know, they came very close in 2016, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
maybe a
it's
rain
seventh
delay
inning
away.
or ninth inning
But
of
I
game
think it's
seven.
a family that, you know, born and raised here and has contributed a lot to this community, charity-wise, civic obligations, everything else. Zach Meisel from The Athletic, who I used to work with at cleveland.com, tweeted something today that made me think. And it's not that this isn't like are the Dolans really deserving, because I believe they are. But he thought it was a good opportunity and maybe the right opportunity to give that award to Fred McLeod this year. You know, Fred is a guy from Cleveland.
Yep.
And you told me that he did more than just Cavs games, right?
At one time he did Indians games.
Yeah. But the fact that he's so closely associated with the greatest player and the greatest achievement in this town's for half a century in calling the game that delivered a championship.
Yeah, I haven't
and what
seen,
happened to him this summer.
I haven't seen the format for tonight's show. I'm sure they're going to do some kind of tribute.
Maybe,
to
yeah.
him.
Maybe there is something else, and maybe this voting was also done, you know, quite some time ago.
Right.
But anyway, it gave me pause to think about Fred again, and he's a really good guy, and I hated to see what happened. Obviously.
Yeah, we all did, no question about that. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. What do you, if you envision what's going to happen in the next 12 months, do you see anything really positive that'll make you say we're turning it around in this direction because?
Well, I think in the next 12 months you'd have to look and say, if the Browns have the right coach, that this is a team that the talent is here.
Right. You don't want to go through a coaching search again.
No, but I think it's not like a guy takes over, they've torn it down, and now you know you're going to have to wait, you know, 2-3 years for him. So I think you can possibly see some positive things happening with that organization if Kevin Stefanski is the right guy and they hire the right GM. You know, the Indians are going to be in the hunt. I would feel a little better if they were reinvesting some of the money that they got.
Right.
And I know arbitration ate up some of it, extensions, you know, those things. But right now, when you look at the division and you see what the Twins have done,
and you see what
Chicago's done, I think the Indians are a pretty good team that didn't necessarily get any better.
At least at this point. Do you envision before spring training, do you see anything happening?
Well, yeah, I would like to think so. You know, I think Puig is still.
Would you want him?
At this point,
yeah.
I think I would.
I would too.
Just because I don't see, you know, the Frankie Lindor thing to me still hangs, you know, over their heads and the heads of fans, and that nobody thinks that this organization is going to be able to keep him. So why not invest in the team while he's here? And try
one more shot.
And try to win something. You know, not that they're not trying. I don't mean it that way, but increase your chances of winning something while.
You know,
I
totally agree with you. Is I said that the Cubs loss, the couple of the other losses that the Indians had they just been able to win those games or win that series, it would have bought them a pass for quite a while.
Sure.
And unfortunately, losing in heartbreaking fashion does the opposite.
And it would make even I think fans mostly know that even, you know, that the Lindor contract is far and above the means of a lot of teams in the league, not just the Indians. I think they usually beat up the Dolans for not spending money. Would you agree?
Yep.
But in this case, I think most fans see that a $400 million contract or $380 million or what it's going to be for one guy is pretty daunting for a lot of teams in this league. So had they won in 2016 and 4 years later they said, hey, we're going to use this generational player to bring even more talent here and try to reload and win another one, I think people would accept it more. But the fact they didn't win, the fact that it looks like Lindor's going to leave and they still haven't, and the payroll has gone down the last 2 years. I think that's what people find it hard to take.
Yeah, I do understand it. What I don't understand is the the perception that people have of I'm going to say the Dolans, but at this point I'm talking about Paul Dolan, and you just wonder. It looks like the Cavs get a pass because they won in 2016. It looks like the Browns get a pass. I don't know why it does, but it does. And the Indians don't ever get to play with that pass.
No, I think that's true, and I don't know exactly why it is. I mean, we've talked about Dick Jacobs as an owner, and it was a point of pride with Dick, and he would tell you that he was a businessman first, and he wasn't going to operate at a loss,
yeah.
And he didn't. Now, at that time, of course, there were salaries weren't quite what they are, and they were drawing $3 million a year in those great years.
The sellout streak began at that point. 216-575-0403. If you'd like to get in, we're only going to be here till 6:45. So if you wanted to call, now's the time to do that. A line is open. You can explore your interests and find a program that puts you on the path to a bright future. Tri-C offers more than 1,000 courses and over 140 career and technical programs. Go to tri-edu for more information. We'll come on back in a moment. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
Let's take a look at this date in sports history, January 20th, and that, of course, goes back to just last year. Mariano Rivera becomes the first unanimous Hall of Fame selection. Also in 1962, how about this? Jackie Robinson and Bob Feller elected to the Hall of Fame that year.
Wow.
Pretty good grouping, right?
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad at all.
A little, probably a little more prestigious than Jeter and Larry Walker.
You think?
Yeah. Did you hear Larry Walker's quote? He said he feels like when you used to buy, and this would be right up our alley generation-wise, when you used to buy the 45 record, with the hit record,
yeah,
and then you turned it over
to
the B-side. He said he's the B-side to Jeter's.
Excellent.
Jeter's top 10 hit.
You think Omar will get it next year?
Yeah, I heard Jason Stark, who I worked in Philadelphia with at the same time, ESPN, who I respect a lot, and he's really connected. I understand on 92.3 today that he said that he wasn't sure that Omar would get in. He voted for him, by the way, but he wasn't sure that just this 10% jump over last year was necessarily an indication that he'll get in. He still thinks it's kind of touch and go.
I would think it's the way the balloting has worked in the past. I would think that a jump of 10% at that point, and next year he wouldn't have the Jeters of the world or anybody else like that who are automatic guys that should get it.
Yeah, and I think if you look at Schilling, who I think a lot of people feel is a Hall of Fame pitcher, he he was in the 30-40% range for a little while and then jumped. So now he's somewhere around 70, I think he finished.
Yes.
Which is another oddity. It's like, why does it take so long for some of these guys to build
they either
momentum?
are or they're not.
Yeah, that's how you kind of look at it and you think, are you a Hall of Famer or aren't you? But you can only vote for a certain number of guys,
10.
and sometimes if the ballot is particularly strong, guys will get left off. I think in his case, and we talked about it briefly, he's been very antagonistic toward media and also with his political views at times have rubbed people the wrong way. But even prior to that, he wasn't polling really high. It's not like he was up at 60%, started making people angry and went down to 40. He was always down.
I'd like to believe his political leanings have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I don't think it does. I mean, in fact, he came out and said something kind of like, John Smoltz got in because he's a Democrat. That's what he said at one point. First of all, John Smoltz is not a registered Democrat, which he pointed out. And that didn't have anything to do with it.
No, of course not. 216-575-0403 is the number to call, which is the number that BP and Pepper Pike called. Hello, BP.
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to check in to see if the Browns have a new general manager yet.
No, I
Call
think they're
tomorrow at this time.
I think they're working on it. It's. I know Barry is still listed as a finalist, as is the guy from New England whose name I butcher every time I try to say it.
But Austin Mocker.
Thank you. I wondered what happened to him.
Well, there you go. He reappeared.
You need a lefty coming out of that the dog pound.
Peyton is very well respected. He's also a guy that has turned down interviews over a number of years now because he didn't think the situation was right for him. So we'll see how he feels about this.
Don't you think they just all subscribe to the feeling that I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, whatever that is, and I'm going to take this team to the championship, and then I'm going to go to Canton, Ohio?
Well, but if you're him and you've seen so much change in this building, and you have to ask yourself, well, why is that the case? And is it because different people in the building are reporting to the owner, and that some of that is still in place? Paul DePodesta reports to the owner, as will the GM, and as will the head coach.
Okay, I know you had a private meeting with Jimmy.
Yeah, a long time ago after the Jasinski firing.
Okay, so first of all, he comes across as suave as can be, right?
Yeah, very charming.
Very
guy.
impressive.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of people want to say, I need to see it for myself. I hear about this guy. I don't like what I hear, but there must be something about him that they want to get in and talk.
Yeah, and I think we just saw a little bit most recently with the Robert Saleh, who came in and interviewed the Niners defensive coordinator, who had nothing but glowing things to say about Haslam and the process and the people he met here. Now you would say, well, what else is he going to say? He wants to be considered here.
And by the way, 2 years ago they were 1-31.
Yeah. So, I don't think it's anything that Haslam says or does in these interviews that turns guys off. I think they see a guy who's willing to spend, who's willing to swallow contracts if he doesn't think something was right that he
clearly
did.
wants to win.
Clearly wants to win.
They all do.
If I may mention something, I mean, to me, Josh McDaniels wanted this job also. So
yeah, but I think that Jimmy Haslam would have to give up too much.
Well, when you said that on the radio the other day, but Jimmy Haslam's the owner. He doesn't have to give up any power. I mean, he's the owner. He didn't have to keep Paul DePodesta here. I mean, to me, the jury is out on Paul DePodesta. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I think that's
rightfully so.
He writes the checks to everybody. He doesn't have to give up power. If he wanted to blow out Paul DePodesta and bring in Josh McDaniels and the New England Patriots guys, I thought that was a better formula for winning for Cleveland.
I think clearly McDaniels was not DePodesta's guy.
Right, but who is Paul DePodesta? What has he done in the NFL?
Yeah.
Well,
zero.
Yeah.
Zero. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
that's why I'm saying Jimmy Haslam. This is all on Jimmy Haslam now. I'm hoping for the best, like the other 2 million people that live in this area. But you know what? His record's been terrible.
You're absolutely right. I can't disagree with anything you just said.
I'm hoping for the best. Like,
well,
let's say they get. I call this guy the General. General George Payton. Let's hope they get.
Oh, like you made that up
from Minnesota. But what if he says no to this job?
Well, then I think you'll see Andrew Berry here and he'll be
Andrew
even
Berry
more.
might be waiting outside the door, waiting to see if Peyton leaves yet.
Yeah.
Well, I heard on the fan, they said that George Payton was here for 7 hours, but he, got back on a plane to Minnesota. So that's not that kind of happened with Josh McDaniels, and you saw that it turned out.
Yeah. Now, the only thing we don't know, and listen, I was in favor of McDaniels too. I just think he's a bright offensive mind who's had experience as a head coach, who should have learned from that experience. What I don't know is, and I was told, not told by someone, not directly, but I know people who were told that he would not take this job if DePodesta was still in position, because he doesn't want that situation where a guy, can report to the owner and say, hey, this head coach and this staff, aren't,
Right.
they're not
Which
using
really
the information.
Does make sense. I mean, nobody wants somebody chirping in the background when you're, trying to put together a.
But now, how sweeping? We heard that he wanted sweeping changes. So, how sweeping were those changes? I don't know. Were they more than just, I don't want DePodesta, in your ear if I'm coaching here? We'll never know that part of it. But
because they've already made the sweeping changes. Most of these coordinators are gone. Guys like Todd Monken's gone, and.
All right, BP, we're closing up shop early tonight. We got to go. Thanks so much for the call. Tomorrow night, the D-man, Dennis Maniloff, will be here. You have a final comment for tonight?
Do you want me to comment on Dennis Maniloff being here?
Please
I'm
do.
in favor of it. Yeah. I like Dennis. I think he's terrific.
Okay, well, you can watch the impeachment stuff and then watch D-man at 2 o'clock in the morning.
There you go.
That'll do it for us. Thanks to Bud Shaw, as always. We'll see him next Tuesday. That'll do it for us tonight. Of all the shows I've ever done, this was the most recent.